we don't do mill and overlay. The only reason I say that is because the roads that we started to reconstruct when Mike came about, which was how many years ago? 14. So by the time we get to finishing our reconstruction, if we haven't done a mill and overlay at year 15 on an asphalt road, now granted you can probably make it a few more years, but then you are back to letting it deteriorate to the point.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. I
Okay.
hear that concern. So that's what I completely hear that concern. I'm not convinced that that's what that's the intention, that we're,
Right.
you know, it might not just, maybe, I think, going back to trustee Menta's point is, I think a discussion of the plan in general to make sure we're all on the same pages and that these concerns are addressed. I think that would be a great use of time. I'm not sure how it affects our discussion today, though. That's where I'm getting.
I think I've made a note of it, so it can be helpful for you to move on.
All right.
Yeah, thank you for that. We'll get public works on evaluating that, what fiscal impact that might be.
Right, because there are benefits. We're either going to extend life, save money, or, you know, stretch out the reconstruction plan. So all wins if we have the discussion.
Quick question on the item, identify needs not scheduled and planned. And, you know, this piggybacks on some discussions I've had with other village board members. But I'm curious as to some of the stuff that we know we're gonna have to do. It seems like, you know, we notice retaining wall, village center HVAC, water mains. Why are we omitting that from kind of the numbers that we put in the long range plan? You think you want it to be kind of a roll-up of everything? So I'm kind of curious as to why we have this kind of side sheet of things that are not currently planned. So waiting on village board direction, what's the reason we have this?
Sure. The first few items, again, when you refer to your big white sheet, items 11 through 15, were things that were laced into the plan previously, that were not reflected in the schedule with anticipation that that was going to be a topic of discussion for the report prioritization, this being one additional piece of that. The DPW facilities, we had some separate discussions about the assumptions on the original recommendations, whether or not those are viable. I have my own concerns, again, about leading the board down a path of committing hundreds of thousands of dollars to do piecemeal enhancements without looking at the overall $5 million project. So that's why I've isolated and listed all of the components, not just the shelf shed that was supposed to be done that never happened, not just the retaining wall. Now the retaining wall, I think it's pretty universal, it has to be done no matter what we do. But the rest of this is contingent on broader plans.
I think the retaining wall is tied into the utility relocations too, so it might have two parts. But the thing is we don't know the conditions. We're not the administration. So does the administration feel something has to be done with the DPW facility? Like, I call that almost mandatory if it has to be done. Not that a state's saying it has to be done, but in the next, by 2029 or 2039.
Well,
Just for some perspective, I think that there's been a board here who has been talking about making enhancements to this facility for over the last decade.
Yeah.
So it's been a theme, no different, and it was a theme for the police station for a decade of review. I think what Mark, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think what Mark's trying to communicate is that we feel it would be in your best interest to first evaluate your operations, and then based upon what you plan on providing in terms of future operations, evaluate your facility and make future improvements either in that location or another location.
But that didn't answer the question. So do we need to make an improvement to the facility in the administration's, you know, maybe you don't know and that's what you're telling us, but
I can't give you an identified year within the next 10
I'm not asking for the year. I just want to know if you foresee and would recommend that something be done to that facility in the life of this plan that we have before us.
What if we contract out DPW entirely? Then the answer is no.
Well, we could do that with, you know,
So but it does matter what, I mean, we do need to, I don't know, I think what she's saying is she can't answer that question because it depends, you know, what we decide to do, and so, yeah, I mean,
and there's other ones that I think trustee Warren, if I may speak for you, but like the Oakland Avenue Edgewood Pit, or some of these other things, you know, Edgewood Avenue Joint Project, that's kind of out of our hands. So I guess I think what I'm hearing trustee Warren say is, which I have said in the past, whatever we know we're going to need to do in the administration's point of view as a need, you know, within this time frame, how do we go about getting it into our overall plan? Yes, Mark?
You've got the list, tell me where to put it, it'll be in the plan. You just have to fund it. I mean, this is the nutshell of the game, you know. Yeah, and there's obviously more needs, I think, than we want to spend in money. I think that's the prioritization process. I don't think that, short of the south shed, there's any dramatic issues with the public works facilities that can't be dealt with in maintenance. That's my takeaway off the stuff. Whether you want to set the public works facilities up for the next 50 years and do some significant reconstruction down there versus just ongoing maintenance until, you know, I mean, that's the dilemma for all facilities.
Trustee McKay and then Maher.
My understanding of this list, when it's come up in the past and there's been placeholders, is that this list is, you know, we're operating in a dynamic, aging, you know, context, right? So things come on so there have been things that are on the radar, and each of them are, the staff has said, this is something to consider. It's aging, but you have some discretion about where it's gonna fall. And each one of these has sort of like cost opportunities and benefits either way. So, you know, one style of management is proactive, where you kind of are saying, hey, street lighting conversion to LAD, it's an expense, but there's a payback. The sooner we do it, the sooner we get the payback. But if you're uncomfortable with borrowing, then that proactive approach is not going to be it's not going to be tolerable. So I feel like where we've gone in the past, the shift that I've observed in our discussions is we went from a place of being proactive and feeling that borrowing was the overall benefit for the community, and now that debt service is more of something that we need to plan for, we now are shifting into, okay, we're not feeling as comfortable about borrowing, so what are emergencies? We still want to act before an emergency because it's always cheaper to do things earlier than when it's so far gone, but how much wiggle room do we have? So that's kind of what I feel like has been the dynamic of our discussion over the past couple of years. And now this list is getting bigger because in those years things age and more things come on the radar. And so I don't see it, I haven't experienced as an omission or a inclusion, that it's more of, we're at a different place where we don't feel like we, you know, we're at a shift in terms of what's our management style with resources. How comfortable are we with borrowing? How comfortable are we with delaying? Are there cheaper ways of doing it?
Can I react?
And you may or may not
No,
agree with that, but I'm just
I'll
saying
ask
for
you
the
a
board's sake, that's kind of where I'm at in listening.
But they used to be included, so then we just push it to another year, like it is
Exactly.
dynamic, right? We used to just say, okay, street lit lighting is something we do desire or we want to do, but then when it would come up as that year, we were able to then say, based on all of these costs, that's an unacceptable amount. Like Chris used to help us say, that's too much, and so he's recommending that we push it out 5 years.
Yep.
But now instead, we've changed that practice a little bit here. And the practice is now, we've identified needs, but we're not going to put them in. So it's hard for me to tell, I want to see the total impact on finances and then make that call based on the administration's recommendation, like we used to.
But isn't that what we're trying to do here by, I thought that that's what we were trying to do now.
Well, if you look at page 37, which kind of breaks it all down to what tax, the village portion of the bill is, plus the utilities, and you get to a total number, right? And last year, in 2027, we were at 4,068, and this year we're at 3,483. So this schedule sort of sums up everything and what it means in dollars and cents to the taxpayer. So Mark took a lot of things out, and we are lower than we were showing in last year's plan. So, I mean, I think if we put the stuff back in, we would still be, you know, we have some room if we want to go to 4,000. You know, what are we now? At just below 3,000. So if we wanted in 10 years, I mean, let's say we did, just hypothetically, I personally don't, but let's say. Right. Yeah?
No, go ahead.
Increase, and let's say we did want to increase from just under 3,000 to 4,000 because we want to get all this stuff done and we're going to make that case to the taxpayers that it's worth it because we need to maintain our infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. So right now, we have, $527 more in either tax or utility that we can use.
And
But I don't know how many of these projects.
Converts up, right?
So if we know, like for instance, can I just give an example? Edgewood Avenue, I think it's just a philosophy here of whether you put them all in and you get all your needs identified and then take some.
You're absolutely correct.
Right?
That is where the disconnect is.
Okay, so that is, right?
So we could
we-
cover that,
Yeah,
and that
but
would
we
help
resolve
us
it?
forward.
But so in order for us to move forward now, if we want to put them back in, it's going to waste another meeting because we then have to see what that calculates out to. Just for going forward. So for Edgewood Avenue, I do have a question. The joint project, my understanding was from our MMSD meeting was they were going to do it.
Could I interrupt? So are we moving on from that topic then?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
I better get.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
a
sorry.
little
Go ahead.
confused
I'd
of
like
what
to
we're
talk
trying. I've heard a lot about, I want the taxes up. So we went through that whole priority, and so we've whittled this list down to try to get this one at 0, and now we're adding stuff. What are we trying to
Well, that's how I
accomplish?
started the
I
meeting.
mean, I don't mind having a list of, here's all, and we can add more on, HVAC, identify and what kind of time frame and exposure we got. But when we get down to budgeting and trying to really get hard numbers for 10 years, we need to put actual projects in are comfortable within the tax levy. If we're saying we don't want taxes to go up, you aren't going to be able to do all this stuff.
Will you be able to do
And that's
this
why
stuff?
at the
That's
beginning
all
of the
it'll be.
meeting,
Right.
I said, can we start by identifying need, make sure that this list is complete so we all know what our choices are to put back in if we wanted to. And we went a different path. That's okay. The village board can choose which way we want to start meeting. But that was the intent, was to identify needs and then move forward with, do we have the right ones in this year's plan? So if you want to everyone feel comfortable with our identified needs?
Do we want to discuss any of the things, like Hubbard Street? I mean, do we want to discuss the list from 11 to 20 of whether there are
I
things
would
that we
like
would
to.
like to put back in?
Or what they need, right?
To me, that makes the most sense, is all of this is not in the plan, so why don't we go through this list and just discuss them and decide what we need to put back in?
I agree.
without-
Right, what we think in the next 10 years is going to need to be put in. Okay. Mark?
Thank you. I appreciate, President Rosa, I know you've done a lot of research on this and trusted that day as well. The comparison between the 2 years and the project schedule changes, and a bit of that is due to lines 11 through 13 that aren't in the plan anymore. Another significant part of that is, again, we have taken a little more diligence on some of the out years and trying to really pin down the range of costs on some of the road projects. Not that road projects were removed, but we were traditionally using these very general placeholder amounts. And with the Southeast Sewer, we really had our engineers just take a look at it and give us some better numbers. And that did create, compared to last year's plan, some opportunity to fill in that back if, you know, at whatever rate is ultimately in the long-term balance between getting projects done and the ultimate impact on the tax rate. So, again, I appreciate the reflection that there is some room, and again, you know, look forward to any indication the board can give us on how to prioritize the remaining projects that are, for lack of a better word, a little more flexible than the defined implementation of the 2020 roads program and the entire southeast road, southeast sewer and related projects, because
Are they mandatory? So when you say these are more flexible, we don't really have a policy or anything saying we have to do those roads. That's pretty flexible too.
correct.
So I know I asked that to Rebecca before, but what, you know, it's not, they're all the same, correct? There's nothing mandatory about the sewer or the roads?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really it's been a choice on behalf of the boards, you know, so, I mean, let's use phase 3 of the sewer project.